When the helicopters came, I thought that everything was going to be better. I thought it was over. I thought we made it. We made it through, and now the helicopters are here, and it was exciting, and it was almost like we had an adventure, and I thought we'd have a story. I'd have a story to tell my kids, and, I went through that, and, everything was going to be right from then on. And I was so wrong. I was so wrong. The high that I had from the cool experience of being airlifted off my roof by helicopter quickly disappeared when we were dropped off at a makeshift bus station right outside of New Orleans in an area called Metairie. And there were thousands of people all huddled together. There, the helicopter just dropped us off into a big mass of people, all desperate and scared and hungry and tired. And it was crazy. There were military officials there to keep order. And what they had us do was they piled us on top of each other very tightly. So tightly that if your arms were at your sides, you wouldn't be able to raise up your hand to scratch your head. That's how tight and compact. The only time that the crowds would disperse was when someone would pass out. And then the crowds would disperse and a medic would come and rush in to help someone. Were we tightly packed because there was little space? No. We were tightly packed and barricaded in because the military officials wanted us to be, but there was plenty of space for us to have breathing room. But they demanded that we get on top of each other. And they passed around jugs of water for us to pour on ourselves. Again, it was over 100 degrees outside. And when you're piled on top of other people, it makes it even worse. And the body heat, the unbearable temperatures that I thought I had endured upstairs seemed pleasant compared to this. And there were people holding up babies, saying my baby's not breathing. Babies that would normally be brown-skinned, my complexion, were turning red. And it was so scary. It was like being in hell. And I can only imagine that it would be something akin to what being aboard a slave ship would be like. It was that tight. And the hardest part was watching the military officials, all white and one Spanish, but the rest white, pointing and laughing as they saw us. And obviously most of us had been on rooftops or in attics for several days, and all we had was the clothes on our backs. And we looked disheveled, and I know I didn't smell too good. But these guys were laughing at the pain that everybody was experiencing. They were laughing. Growing up in New Orleans, I had this idea that racism wasn't as big a deal as it used to be. New Orleans is a predominantly black city, and for those who are from New Orleans know that there are some intra-racism issues with the light skin, dark skin, mixed black thing, which is a whole nother story. But still, I never had encountered such overt racism before. And basically we had waited for 6 hours in this crowd. And again, news vans everywhere, but relief buses came once every 4 hours. Little yellow buses for thousands of people. New families were constantly being brought into the crowds by helicopter and by boat. And for most of the 6 hours, everyone that surrounded me was a person of color. And later on, a white family came. They had been delivered by helicopter like we had. And they went to the back of the crowd like everyone else did. And the military officials came, and they escorted the white family to the front of the crowd. And I almost couldn't believe what I was seeing. I mean, we were so tired and had been through so much. And I'm sure they had too, but no more than us. And everyone else had to go in this order, but the white family was skipped ahead. And they looked so afraid at the sight of all these black people. This white family, they weren't elderly, they weren't impaired, they weren't injured. I was surrounded by people with bandaged limbs and who were bleeding and who were sick. People who had passed out, been patched up and sat back into the crowd, or forced to stand in the crowd. And this white family was skipped up to the front. I remember my dad asking the military official, yelling, "Hey, what's going on? How come they get to be moved up to the front?" And the guy threatened to mace us. The military official told us to stop causing problems or he would mace us. And it was like a punch to the chest. I realized right then and there, and I want everyone to hear this, those of you who know me, because I know this has been an issue for some people with the mixed thing and all that. I instantly realized at that moment that as far as they were concerned, I was a nigger. They didn't care about the fact that we probably shared some common ancestors down the line. They didn't care about my last name or the Creole family that I came from. They didn't care that I was 21 with a college degree in my thriving business. They saw brown skin and assumed that I was a nigger from the projects, because that's how they saw all of us. So basically, I realized that as far as they were concerned, I was worth less than my white counterparts. And it was real for the first time in my life. I wasn't reading about it. I wasn't reading about Dr. King's marches, about Rosa Parks sit-ins. I saw it for myself, and I experienced it for myself.